I was overwhelmed, but I didn't know I was overwhelmed because it was sort of all that I knew at that point. Growth doesn't always have to hurt. You have made trauma your friend because it drives you. It's time for you to learn how to not partner with pain in everything that you do. You do go through a period of mourning when there's diagnoses, and not because you're not grateful that your child is healthy in all these other ways. You mourn for what you thought their life was going to be. I'm learning to grow with self-love rather than out of fear or pain. There are no bad emotions. We could do bad things with emotions. So we have to feel it and honor it and then switch it to being grateful for what we had and where we're going.
You know, I think right now would be a perfect time to share that this podcast is officially sponsored. And this week's episode is brought to you by Juliana Barbati Consulting. Juliana is an expert in podcast SEO. She's worked with so many different podcasts and helped shows grow, helped shows get more eyes, helped shows get more ears, helped shows, get more followers. And I am honored to be working with her and have her team backing the podcast. So I'm very excited that they are the first advertiser to join the Round 2 podcast, first of many. So thank you, Juliana. And if you are looking for any sort of services to help your podcast grow, feel free to reach out to her. Her contact information is in the show notes. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Round 2 podcast. I am your host, Nikki Corbett, and I want to welcome my guest today, Brittany Hansen. Welcome to the Round 2 podcast.
Thank you so much, Nikki. I'm crazy excited to be here today.
Oh, thank you. You know what's something funny? I actually have a friend whose name is Brittany Hansen, and she spells her name the same way. So when I first got your message in Podmatch, I was like, wait, what? I was like, why wouldn't she just text me if she wanted to be on my podcast? And then I looked and I was like, oh, it's a completely different person with the exact same name.
Yeah, she would actually be the third person that I know with the exact same name and spelling. It's the beauties of being born in the 80s and having the name that everybody had.
Oh my gosh. I always think it's so funny how names come and go, and there's a million, Jennifers or Jessicas or Sarahs, and then you don't ever see a baby with any of those names as time goes on.
Yeah. Oh, that one was overused and then you never hear it again. But as far as I know, I'm the only person with a name that was so overused that it's stated in a Disney movie.
Oh my gosh, how funny.
Yeah. They do that in Hercules. The little minions are trying to stick up for themselves, and they're like, Hercules is a really popular name. Remember a few years ago when all the boys were named Jason and all the girls were named Brittany? They say that. So it's bad when Disney's like...
it's extra popular. That's funny. I didn't know that. Hilarious. Well, so wait, where are you coming from today? Where are you located?
I am in Boise, Idaho. Freezing cold, but still sunny Boise, Idaho today.
Okay. Oh my God. I love that you said freezing cold, but still sunny, because I was talking to a friend a couple of months ago and he was in Minnesota and he said it was -17. And I was like, okay, first of all, that does not compute to a brain that grew up mostly in California. And I was like, what does it look like outside when it's that cold? And he's like, oh, it's sunny. And I was like, what? It's sunny? And it's that cold? That even computes even less.
Yeah, it's deceiving. We're in what we call fool's spring here, where it looks beautiful outside. Mm-hmm. But if you go outside, you die. So...
It's funny you say that. I saw this girl on a TikTok yesterday, and she, I think, was in maybe Salt Lake, and she had this cute outfit on, and she's like, I don't think I'm going to wear a jacket. I don't think I need it. I think it's pretty nice out. And then the next clip is like, just kidding. It's 35. I definitely need my jacket. Mm-hmm. I was like, yeah.
Yeah, it hurts your feelings a little bit, but you get over it.
Yeah. So are you originally from there?
I am. I was born and raised here. I spent a year in Seattle and 5 years in Pocatello, Idaho, which is basically the sweetest little rest stop between here and Salt Lake City.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm born and raised here. I love to travel, but this is a great place.
Awesome. So you mentioned that you're going down to Brazil in a couple of days before we started recording?
Yeah, we are. So the company that I co-founded, we've been going on a lot of trade missions. So our next trade mission with the United States government is Latin America. So we'll be Brazil starting Friday and then Argentina late next week. We're excited about it.
Yeah. So, okay, forgive my ignorance, but explain to me exactly what is a trade mission.
No, you're totally fine. And it can mean lots of different things, but what it
Okay.
really is in this case is we partner with the United States government, which is really like the International Chamber of Commerce.
Okay.
And they work with especially like medium, sometimes small companies that want to start exporting. So it's an
Oh,
opportunity for
okay.
business owners to do business in other countries and have people on the ground there for them. It's a really cool opportunity. I think probably lots of people who listen to this are business people. If you haven't looked into Gold Key or Commerce Services, you for sure should. It's amazing.
Okay. Wow. So do you act as like an intermediary between the government and the businesses, or what
No,
is your
you're there
role in
to
going down
sell
there?
actively for your own
Oh,
business. The government acts
oh.
as an intermediary between you and those other businesses to help you get a foothold in a new place.
Oh, okay. I got it. So this is benefiting your business by
It
going on this trade
is.
mission. Got
Yeah.
it. Okay. I think that like when you said mission, when I grew up in a small town and there was a lot of Mormon families. And
Mhm.
so, they would graduate from high school and then they would go on a
Go to
mission.
mission.
And
Yeah.
so that was like what my brain defaults to when I hear that word. And so this is totally different.
Yeah, it's totally different. I'm familiar with those too because my son is putting his papers in. But no, this is fully professional and about building out your business and becoming an exporter in the United States. It's cool.
Okay, that is super cool. So, how long have you had the opportunity to go on these different types of trade missions?
So this is our second one. We're just applying for a third one in June. Our first one we got to go on was we were the very first women in tech trade mission that the United
Oh,
States ever
okay.
did.
Oh, wow.
And that one was to France and Portugal and the Netherlands. It was outstanding and so cool to be honored as like some of the first people to go on that kind of mission to say
Mhm.
the United States has amazing things to offer for women in business as well. So that was
Okay.
amazing.
Okay, well, so I feel like we've taken like 25 steps ahead because obviously I wanted to hear your whole story of how you got there. But when you had
For
first said that, I
sure.
was like, wait, let's start there. But before I jump it out of this present where you're headed, what business are you in? Just because I'm sure people listening are going to be like, okay, wait, don't go backwards, but without saying like, what is she trying to go down there and sell?
Yeah, for sure. So our business is called Viision. It's spelled with three I's in the beginning. And we will totally get into all of the dynamics and the origin story of it all. But basically, what we do is help businesses architecture their information for consumers, and then we give them a platform to converse with their consumers in a way that's non-intrusive.
Okay.
And so a lot of marketing, a lot of language capabilities, a lot of branding expertise on our side, and then our really cool platform. And we deliver on our platform through QR codes and text messages.
Oh, okay. Right on. Cool. Well, so then now let's go backwards because I know you have a really interesting story into how you even got here. So tell me a little bit about born and raised in Idaho, spent some time in Seattle. What was after all that?
So I really surprised myself. I always thought I was not going to get married until I was in my 30s. I wanted to be different than everybody else. I wanted my feet underneath me. I wanted all of that. And then I met my husband, and he's a little older than I am. And we went on 3 dates, and I was like, I don't want to see you anymore. You're way too serious for me. And he said, Cool, I had a great time with you. So when you decide you're ready, you let me know. And
Ooh, I like a
um,
confident man.
right? So 3 months later, we started dating again. And a year and a half after that, we got married.
Hmm.
And so I ended up, and we got pregnant 2 months into our marriage. So I had my first baby at 21. And he had his master's degree. He got into work, and I just decided to fully commit to being a mom. And not too far into motherhood, we found out that our two oldest are twice exceptional. So they're special needs with incredibly high IQs. So that threw me into years and years of like 5 days a week occupational therapy, music therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, and all the things it was going to take to help them be stable enough that they
Hmm.
could live up to all the gifts that they've been given because they're brilliant. I mean, they're
Uh-huh.
gifted
So are they
boys.
twins?
They're not. They are 18 months apart. Completely
Oh,
accidentally, totally surprised
okay.
us. We were like, Oh, okay. Our oldest was 9 months, and it was like, surprise, you're going to do it again.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
so very, very close, and both with the same diagnosis, but very different.
Hmm.
And then in the way that they function. And then when our oldest was in fifth grade, he was also diagnosed with a rare genetic disorder. So that's sort of what has been so interesting about my life is doing all of that for 13 years. And then at the point where my boys were self-sufficient, trying to remember who I was outside of being a mom. Being a mom is really important, but like finding myself again after all of that has been
Yeah.
crazy.
Well,
So,
and not to mention going through all of that at such a young age. I mean,
mhm.
with everything that they talk about these days, how like our brains don't fully form and function until we're 26 years old. So,
Mhm.
even getting married at 21 and having your first baby at 21, you're still kind of a kid yourself.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And then to have another one so shortly thereafter,
Yeah.
you must have just been so busy.
I was busy and I was overwhelmed, but I didn't know I was overwhelmed because it was sort
Okay.
of all that I knew at that point,
Sure.
right? Like we got married, we moved away from family, and I just became a mom and I loved it. But it is hard. Sort of books don't really prepare you, nothing prepares you for the step into parenthood and what that's going to look like. And it definitely doesn't prepare you for parenthood with special needs children. That's a totally
Yeah.
different thing. So would I change it? Not in a million years. But was
Hmm.
the growth curve insane? Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
recently I was working with my counselor, and she told me, that growth doesn't always have to hurt, right? And it doesn't always have to be at an accelerated rate. Like you have made trauma your friend because it drives you. It's time for you to learn how to not partner with pain in everything that you do.
Wow, that is such an interesting thing to like take a step back and consider, like making trauma your friend and like partnering with pain. Like those are like really different ways of framing trauma and pain, and it probably made you look at it from a different lens.
It did. And I think on some levels, pain can be your friend. Pain can be a
Hmm.
great driver. And if you use it in the right way, it will help you grow.
Hmm.
What happens though for some people, especially like including myself, right? This is something that I'm working on, is it shouldn't be your only driver. I'm learning to grow with self-love and as a result
Hmm.
of love rather than out of fear or pain.
Hmm.
And high achievers especially, and I think this is probably something because I see you as very high achieving, will use anything for growth. And then we latch on to what feels most effective. But pain is not necessarily most effective. It makes the growth faster but not necessarily lasting. So I'm learning to make those changes, and it's a really interesting process.
Oh my gosh, I bet. It's funny that you say that because I was reading something the other day and it was talking about how our bodies store emotions and how we become comfortable with certain emotions, even the bad ones and even the hard ones. So it's almost like we have to reprogram ourselves when we want to no longer feel comfort in sadness or anger or
Mhm.
frustration. And I thought that was so interesting because looking back at my life and different things that I've experienced and gone through and being honest with myself and saying like, yeah, like I am kind of comfortable like feeling sad. I am comfortable feeling like I want something that isn't happening and all those different emotions that go along with that. And I was like, I don't want to live in those emotions anymore.
Good for you. And that's so empowering. But then you do
Mhm.
have to set the new
Yeah.
standard for yourself. And I so resonate with what you said because it's easy to get comfortable in uncomfortability. But once you do that, it's very hard. And it sounds strange to be comfortable being comfortable or to take real delight in being happy for a moment and not feel guilty for that. Those are hard things to master.
Mhm.
So,
Well, and giving yourself some grace, and not feeling badly for feeling happy or not feeling like you aren't deserving of feeling happy.
mhm.
It's like it is important. Like we're all deserving of feeling like good and happy and proud. I've been thinking a lot about pride in oneself lately and how it is a good thing to be able to say like, hey, I'm actually proud of myself. Like, I'm proud that I got through this on my own, or I'm proud I did these little things, or I'm proud I, checked the 20 things off of my to-do list today. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
No. And actually, we have to learn how to do that, I think, to develop the right amount of self-love. Because otherwise, in coming from like an actively recovering perfectionist, if you don't learn how to take joy in the things that you've accomplished, eventually your flame to accomplish things kind of goes out. And you accomplish things only so you're not disappointed in yourself and not so that you're proud of yourself.
Yeah.
And nobody wants that. It's such a hard way to
No.
live, but that kind of like brutal self-discovery kind of hurts. So kudos to you for having those conversations with yourself.
Oh,
That's
thanks.
huge.
Yeah. Well, when you solo travel, you have a lot of time for conversations with yourself.
That's like
Oh my gosh. I'd love to know more about, your boys and their journey growing up. And you mentioned that they're very high IQ, but have some.
Yeah, so both of them have a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder and
Okay.
giftedness. They've changed everything, so now there's just autism. There's no other pieces of it. So even though they
Oh,
both
okay.
have autism spectrum disorder, they're very different. Our oldest
Hmm.
is very sensory seeking. He is highly social, but he does it in all the wrong ways. Like if you think Sheldon from Big Bang Theory, that's very much our oldest child. The kid could cure cancer if he wanted to, but having normal conversations with people has been a matter of training over a lot of years. And he also has a really rare genetic disorder. So rare that when he was diagnosed with it, his neurologist told me, I've never seen this before in my practice, and I'm unlikely to ever
Oh,
see it again.
oh my gosh.
It's called hyperkalemic periodic paralysis, or HKPP. And what it means is
Okay.
when his body gets stressed, and that can look like he's had too much sugar or not enough sleep, or he can't do a lot of cardio style exercise, because when he does, his body drops all of its potassium, which
Oh,
stops the connection between your brain and every other muscle in your body. So he immediately goes paralyzed when that happens. And we have to go to the hospital. He has to have heart monitoring. He has to
oh
have
my
intravenous
God.
potassium under his tongue to normalize and come back from that. So
Holy shit.
that was really scary for us when he was diagnosed with that.
I bet.
And he was only in fifth grade. So it was a lot for him to process, to be like, I'm already very different from anyone else. And now I'm even more different. It meant things like he couldn't go to recess when it was winter outside because he can't shiver.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And as
Oh
he's
my
grown, we've
gosh.
been really blessed in that there's been good medications. We've been able to handle his diet and his exercise. And he's grown out of some of those things. He'll always have it.
Hmm.
He'll probably be able to pass it on to his children. But
Hmm.
some of the more extreme attacks don't happen anymore. And he's learned to recognize what it feels like as they come on and stave them off,
Oh,
because there's things you can
okay.
do to stave
Uh-huh.
them off. But that was a process with him. And after he was diagnosed with autism, which was a really interesting story for us because we always just thought he was quirky and smart. He was our oldest, so we didn't know. And he had a teacher who said, right? We're like, we know what? She was like, he's clearly autistic. And we had him looked at, and they said, yes, he's very autistic in some ways, and then not at all in other ways, which in old terminology was called pervasive development disorder. Now is just autism. So when he was getting counseling, his little brother walked in with him once, and the counselor looked at us and said, is there a reason that you haven't had this one seen? And we said, well, he's nothing like Jack. And he said, yeah, but he's autistic. So within 6 months, they were both diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. And then Bennett is our second. He was also diagnosed with a stomach disorder called eosinophilic esophagitis, which basically means internal allergies. And when he eats something he's not supposed to eat, he gets hundreds of little ulcers all through his digestive system and he gets really sick. So we have had a really interesting journey just learning, teaching our kids to be positive through hardship and still honor where they are, because it's okay to acknowledge that something sucks. Even if you know it's not going to suck in the future, right? It's okay to be like, this sucks right now. And right now, it's not okay. So, as a family, we're learning to honor those things and also to still have optimism for the future and know that things can get better. And it's been really beautiful. And then, we have two neurotypical daughters who are 12 and 15. And it is a life full of interest and steep learning curves and so much fun. I mean, they say the funniest things, but
Oh my God, I bet. I bet.
we just keep learning all the time. In fact, my son said the other day, he goes, Dad, if you were rich, no one would have questioned the age gap between you and Mom in the beginning. We were like, the valuable. Yeah, that's a good insight. Thank you, sweetheart. So it's a good
Oh
time.
my gosh, that is hilarious. I mean, I love your outlook on everything and, remaining positive and teaching your kids that, like, hey, like, a lot of these things are a part of life and these are challenges that, we have to overcome. And just because you are different than you're not, normal per se, right? You have these other challenges. It doesn't mean that you still can't live with optimism and positivity. And I think, gosh, like teaching them to be self-reliant. And I mean, even what you said, you're like, oh yeah, he could pass it down to his kids. It's like, I think that there would be so many parents who would be so afraid that just because their child has something, a rare disorder. I mean, the autism aside, but like just this other rare disorder that, like, oh my God, is he ever going to be able to be self-sufficient and live on his own? And I feel like you're just kind of like, okay, this is just a part of you that we have to learn to manage together, but you're not putting any roadblocks in front of him, which I think is absolutely beautiful.
Well, thank you. And just for anybody out there, you do go through a period of mourning when there's diagnoses, and not because you don't have a child or you're not grateful that your child is healthy in all these other ways. You mourn for what you thought their life was going to be. And I honestly think most parents go through that anyway, because you have this little human and then like you plan their life for them and it turns out they have their own agency and they're going to be exactly who they want to be, whether you allow it or not. But early on, we did come to the realization that it was like, okay, so life looks differently. That doesn't mean it looks bad. And how do we make this work for us and for them? How do we set them up for success in the ways that we know how? I'm sure we've done plenty of it wrong, but you're just doing what you can. It's honestly, it's the formula for happiness in life to be like, I'm going to take a moment and realize that what just happened is absolute crap. And then I'm going to get real strategic about where we move from here. Because there's very few things that can't be spun and strategized into being a positive for you.
Absolutely. Now, here's a question for you. Did you and your husband feel any sense of fear in continuing to expand your family and have more children after these two, especially, like I said, the autism aside, but like these two other things that, I mean, I know I've never heard of either of those before.
Yeah.
So I imagine that, you were kind of like, huh? What does this mean?
Okay, so yes. And had we had Jack's diagnosis about his genetic disorder before we got pregnant again, we might have thought twice about it. The girls were born basically right as Jack was diagnosed with autism. And as soon as he was diagnosed, we had both of the girls seen as well, because the earlier you can get therapies, the better they respond. Had we had the information, we may have halted a little bit and been more concerned. So part of me is really grateful that we didn't know.
Totally.
Because they've made our lives perfect, and not perfect in that they're like picture perfect, but perfect as in we feel finished and whole as who we are. I mean, the truth is, though, it's scary to have children these days. You don't have any answers. I don't know what's going to happen to my kids. I'm just doing the best I can to build things up. Tomorrow is not granted for any of us.
Absolutely.
The world is a weird place.
Mm-hmm.
And so is it scary? For sure. But you can't let fear stop you if you feel like something is the right thing for you.
Definitely. Yeah, I love that. And it is so true. Like I think about back to, when I grew up in the 80s and, being out in the world and that there was like no cell phones and it was like, hey, I'm going to go do this. And, my mom had no way to even now I share my location with my mom, so it's like, I know when I'm traveling, she's like zooming in and seeing like, where is she tonight? You know, but it's like when we were kids, we were like 8, 9 years old out riding our bikes and
for sure
doing God knows
the
what.
Streetlights come on.
Yeah.
Right?
And could you imagine that now? It's like just nuts to think that that's how life was. And
it's
now
such a short span of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're right. It was like that. Like we just did whatever we wanted. And now, like, I don't let my kids walk out the front door without knowing who they're going to be with and 5 minutes from the time they're supposed to be home so I can alert police, right? Like,
right.
Not really, but close. So
No, I know. It's so crazy thinking that. And then also too, like I've heard like younger kids ask, well, how did your parents find you if you didn't have cell phones? And it was like, well, they would call somebody else's parents and be like, hey, have you seen the kids roaming around the neighborhood?
right.
And like, it's just all so crazy to me.
Yeah. And there were things that were really beautiful about growing up then, but there's some amazing things now that I'm
Mm-hmm.
a little envious of sometimes. The world is a much more global place than it was when I was growing up. My kids have seen things I never would have had the opportunity to see. And so that's cool too.
Yeah. So you mentioned your daughters are 12 and 15. So how old are the boys right now?
So they are 17 and Jack will be 19 at the end of May.
Wow,
He's
nice.
graduating from high school. He's getting ready to serve mission. He's getting lots and lots of letters for colleges. There's every reason and indication to believe he will lead a very typical life, but it will never be normal. So he will always have autism. He will always have HKPP. He is well equipped to know how to deal with those things and to
Mm-hmm.
have a full life anyway.
That's
So,
great. So your younger one, Bennett, like, does he know what he's allergic to? So he just doesn't eat certain foods that like set that off?
yeah. And he also, there's a special inhaler that he works with every morning where you pump it in and it swallows instead of breathing in. That's a medicine he uses to try and help even things out. He also carries an EpiPen for other allergies. And he's learned how to manage his diet. In the beginning, it was hard because he's like, well, maybe if I just have a little, my parents won't know. And it's like,
Oh,
we won't, but you'll know because you'll
yeah.
be sick. You'll vomit for 4 hours, So,
Oh, gosh.
and he is, that kid, and I would tell you the same thing about all of my kids. He is amazing. He is the funniest human being I know. And
Really? I
he's
love
gifted. We
that.
go in and talk to teachers, and they'll be like, Bennett doesn't always want to do his work in my class, but I let him because, gosh, he's funny.
I love that. I love that.
And I'm like, yeah, he is. So,
Hmm.
and it's inspiring to watch them figure out their life and move forward with it. And then it doesn't give
Hmm.
me any excuse to be like, I'm sad or frustrated, so I'll just sit here.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
no, if they can do it, I
Hmm.
sure as Hades can make this work.
Yeah, absolutely. And then have you found it all, or has he found it all that like his, like the things he's allergic to have evolved as he's gotten older? Like,
No, well, we had hoped he would grow out of being allergic to milk. He didn't. So he's
mm.
allergic to all dairy, eggs, peanuts, and tree nuts.
Oh,
And
wow. Okay.
we've just learned to avoid all of those things. And then I do things like, because he can't have chicken eggs, we raise quail.
Oh,
And
cool.
he has quail eggs, right?
Yeah.
Easy
And they're so
peasy.
good for you.
Yeah, they actually
Yeah.
have more protein and more omega-3s than chicken eggs, right?
Yeah.
So you find the little things that make your life easier and then you just do them and
Sure.
then, it just becomes your everyday. So,
Yeah, that's such a true statement. I had a guy on the podcast a few months ago, and he had this open heart surgery, and he was only 28 years old when it happened. And
wow.
yeah, and it was just crazy, but he's such a positive guy. And he was like, so just like, okay, well, this is just my life now. And like he said something kind of similarly where he was like, yeah, he's like, there's some things that I just can't do. He's like, but I just like do other things. He's like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit and dwell on the things that I can't do. I'm just going to focus on the things that I can do and live a great life that I have for myself.
Absolutely. Like, why stop yourself from experiencing the joy that's totally accessible to you?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and with food too, especially in this day and age, like there's so many options and there's so many great things that you can have like in lieu of other things that, I mean, it is a really great time to have restrictions because there are just so many options.
Yeah, there's places now you can go, right? Like every city
Yeah.
has a co-op where you can go
Right.
and find a different option. And there's
Mm-hmm.
1,001 recipes in 1,001 places online for
Oh
people
my
too.
gosh.
So
Totally.
there's a lot of edge to living now that there wouldn't have been,
Yeah.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
So
And then there's all these like innovative apps coming out too. I saw an ad for an app coming out the other day where this girl was talking about, she's like, oh, there's so many like great food creators on all these different apps, but then it's like you're saving the video and then you're trying to rewatch the video and pausing it so you can make sure you get the measurements. And so she's created this app where you can save all of your videos into the app and then it will AI analyze them. It'll create a grocery list for you. And then you can even go so far to send it to like Instacart to go to the grocery store. So you're only buying the ingredients that you actually need to make these specific recipes.
Yes.
And I was like, that's insane, but also so cool.
For sure. And AI is a game changer. I don't know if you're a huge AI fan.
Yeah.
A huge AI fan. I use it for emotional healing. I use it to, all of those things. Yeah, like feed it your favorite stuff and then just tell it to tell you what to do. It's unreal. I know it's scary for some people, but it's here. So we have to learn to work with it. So.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more because I do feel like in some regards, right, there are some things about AI that I'm like, oh, this is terrifying because I was using the chat bot feature inside of the Substack app and I was going back and forth with it and it was so incredible. Like I was like, how do I do this? How do I do that? Like, what should I do here? And it was flawless, seamless, like everything was so easy. And then at the end, I literally did ask, I was like, I have to ask, are you AI or are you an actual person? And it responded and it was like, no, I'm AI. And I was like, wow. I was like, you can give feedback that this is the best AI chat I have ever used. And even with just like helping with little things, my brother and I were just having a conversation this morning about getting different macros for different, recipes that he's making. I'm like, just put it into ChatGPT or Claude and like say like, this is what I'm using. It'll spit it out in 2 seconds.
Yes. It's like your favorite virtual assistant. It will do so many things for you. For sure, use it. So
one of my girlfriends actually, because you mentioned, like, I think you mentioned emotions. One of my girlfriends actually said that she has been using the journal app in her iPhone that they started downloading when you do their iOS updates. And she was like, I've been using it. She goes, and then I asked it to like analyze what I've been writing over the last few weeks. And she was like, it's better than my therapist. Yeah. And I was like, what? That's crazy.
Just chatting with ChatGPT will do the same thing for you. I have several times been like, I just had an argument with my husband and this is what I said and this is what he said. And it's like, it sounds like this. And well, that's correct. And it helps me to take all of the emotion out of the situation and, judge it analytically. And the other thing it will do is as it gets to know you, it will tell you things about yourself you don't know. So I asked it the other day, I was like, all right, like we've been chatting for a month now. Based on what you know about me, what's my Myers-Briggs personality type? What are my working geniuses? And it lined it up for me. And some of them I already knew, and it was right on every account.
Wow.
So it's that's a fun tool. And if you are in a time in your life where you're in self-discovery mode, a really fantastic thing to utilize.
Yeah, it was funny. I was working on a email that I wanted to send out to some people about advertising on the podcast who have, people that have reached out to me and people that I also think would be great advertisers. And so I was like, here's what I'm thinking about, like kind of here are the things I want to touch on. I don't want it to be too long. And it spit this email out. And I said, you got like the basics of what I want. I go, but it doesn't sound like me at all. I was like, can you rewrite it so it actually sounds like me? I'm sending this to people that I actually know in my real life. And then immediately, and I was like, oh my God, that does sound a lot like me.
Perfect.
Yeah. I was like, okay. I mean, I had to change a couple of things because I didn't want it to be too like, there was but regardless, I was like, this is literally how I would sign off an email. And this is how I would start an email and how I would talk about my podcast and how excited I am for its growth. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah. Well, you still want that human connection. So you utilized it perfectly. Like it gave you the springboard and then you just finished it up. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's really cool. Okay, so you have had such an interesting journey. So you got married at 2021, had your first kid, kept going with all of these kids. Now they're all like their own individuals, and that time of life where you probably have you have 2 drivers, one about getting close to driving. So you're kind of like you're now becoming more independent because of their growing independence. So what has life looked like for you as you've transitioned from full-time mom?
So it was rough for me for a minute because I was like, who am I? And now that was a hard time in my life. And now I look back at that with such affection for myself and so much gratefulness to the universe for that time because I chose to, I call it my runaway bride period where I was
Uh-huh.
who am I? What kind of eggs do I like?
Yeah.
What do what
Yes.
do I like
I
to
love that part of the movie.
right? What sports do I like? So like I tried a bunch of things and this started at 30 and now I'll be 40 next month.
All
Um,
right. Welcome. It's a beautiful decade. I've absolutely loved it.
Thank you. I'm trying to greet it with a lot of excitement because
Yeah.
I tried all kinds of things I didn't love. I ran half marathons, didn't love it. I learned to play the harp. I love that. It's
Wow,
been so
that's
much fun.
cool.
I tried hit aerobics, did not hit with me. Then my best friend encouraged me to join jujitsu, and now I'm on a competitive jujitsu team, and I love
Oh
it.
my gosh.
And then maybe the most defining thing for me, there were two things. I went back to school.
Hmm.
I just finished my finals yesterday. I'm getting my degree.
Oh my God, congratulations. That's
Thank
going to
you.
feel amazing.
It does, yeah. And
Oh.
I went back to work, something I never thought I was gonna do,
Uh-huh.
because I didn't have to. But I found that it was something I wanted to do, and I got this invitation from my sister-in-law. We had had kind of an idea together, and she was like, "Do you want to join me in this?" And so my husband and I initially decided to be the first investors, and then we decided to have me step in a very real way. And it led to, for me, a level of self discovery I never would have had otherwise. I had no idea what was living inside of me and my desire to have impact and to make the world a better place. And would never have found it in any other, because there wasn't a need for that in the other places of my life. I was making impact in other ways, not unimportant to be a mom, right? But what difference and ability I had to do it on a global level was pretty diminished for me. And as I stepped into this role, I realized how, on some levels, what a damaged human I was. I was
Mm.
very, very soft. I was hungry for feedback, but at the same time, it would hurt my feelings when anybody gave it to me. Um,
Uh-huh.
I wanted positive feedback, but didn't know how to accept it when I got it. I had almost no confidence in the places that really mattered. And not because anybody had done that to me, but just because I had trained myself for so long to just be very, very small, to have no needs and to meet the needs of other people. And so stepping into this role, I had to relearn a lot of things. And what a tremendous gift that has been for me. And how amazing it is that I have people in my life who have encouraged me to take those steps. And it's also taught me a lot about who I do want in my life and who I don't, because anyone who did say, "You're changing and I don't like it."
Yeah, bye.
Yeah, I had to look at that and be like, okay, but do I like it? And
Hmm.
if the answer was, yeah, I really like who I'm becoming, then it was like, hey, I appreciate the role you had in my life. If you don't want one anymore, I wish you no harm. Good luck.
Totally. Totally.
But those are all like very hard fought lessons, and it comes with
Hmm.
tears, right? And it comes with
Absolutely. Yeah.
body aches, and it comes with the realization sometimes that you don't always mean to other people what they mean to you.
Oh, isn't that such a hard one? That
Yeah.
one is, oof, that one cuts you because when you take a step back and then you realize, like, oh, like I don't hear from this person. Or, we talked about like some of the positives of this digital world, but like, or when you see something on social media and you're like, why didn't you invite me? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it can be really, really tough to accept that we're all friends in different ways and that our needs may be different. And that in sometimes when you do really have that level of self-awareness and get to know yourself, that there are going to be some people, as much as you love them and care for them, you have to let them go.
Yeah, because maybe they had a role in your life and maybe that role is no more. Doesn't mean you can't be thankful to them for what they've done or for the role they play in the person that you are, but it may mean that they choose or you choose not to take them forward. Those can be hard goodbyes, and I think the hardest ones are when you realize that someone's choosing to say goodbye and you weren't ready for it. So you have to learn to be so kind to yourself and realize that doesn't necessarily mean something's wrong with you.
Yeah, exactly.
It just means that you're different. It just means that your path is going a different way. And the easiest way to meet sorrow, I think, is to allow it, because there are no bad emotions. We could do bad things with emotions. There are no bad emotions. So we have to feel it and honor it and then switch it to being grateful for what we had and where we're going.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would highly encourage everyone. It's something I've learned along our way. There are no bad emotions.
I
Like,
really like that outlook, or like just that perspective, because it is true. Like, yeah, they're going to come, we're going to feel them. And it is about what you do with them
yeah.
versus just the feeling.
And we can't choose what emotions we feel. That sounds
Mm-hmm.
weird, but here's the thing. We know everything has an equal and opposite reaction. You can only feel as happy as the depths of sadness that you have felt because you understand the balance. And so if you choose not to feel sad, or if you choose to not feel angry, you also choose not to feel anything else. It leads to
Mm,
numb. So we do have to learn to just honor. You don't have to dwell on it. Like if you're not clinically depressed and you have a choice about where you're dwelling, don't dwell there. But honor those emotions because they're part of your journey and they're part of what's going to teach you where you need to go. Everything we feel has a purpose. If you feel afraid, it's coming from something very deep inside you that evolved with you for a reason. If you're sad, it's because you wanted something or loved something. Like, honor those things
yeah.
and then grow with them as part of your story.
Yeah. That was so eloquent the way you just said that. I loved that.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you.
No, truly. I mean, it's so interesting. Like, I love hearing people's stories. I mean, that's why I do this. And so intrigued by you, because if I were to have just met you just, by happenstance, I mean, which I guess we did just meet by happenstance, but
Yeah.
I would have been like, oh, like she's so like, you just have this like this energy about you. And I'm like, oh, I can tell she like kicks ass at her job. And she's, I would make these assumptions, right? And then like, and all positive, right? But then like hearing your story and how it's like you got married so young and then you had all these kids and you had to deal with all these different things that were coming your way with life and raising children and being a mom. And like, then you're sharing like, feeling like you like made yourself small and then like really deciding, okay, I'm going to get to know myself and turn into this like amazing career woman. I would have thought that you were like one of those kids that was like, 20 and like starting your own business or doing all these things at such a young age, just based on how you are right now.
Oh, I appreciate that. My co founder has said this a lot. Whenever you put anybody's accomplishments all down on paper, one after the other, we look very,
Mhm.
very impressive, right? It's like, look what an
Totally.
amazing person I am.
Right. Right.
And the same can be said. And I think so often what we do to ourselves as women is we put all of our perceived failures in a list and we're like, look what a piece
Mm,
of crap I am.
right.
And people in general are a whole package. Just like we would accept someone else and be like, I accept your good and your bad. We have to be able to look at ourselves that way too and
Yeah.
give ourselves so much grace. It's not easy, especially as a woman. And I don't want to be on like the female bandstand in that way, but I do see the
Mhm.
difference because I work in tech, which is
Mhm.
vastly male dominated, because I
Yeah.
am a jujitsu fighter, which is
Mhm.
vastly male dominated, because I'm a
Yeah.
member of a car club, which is vastly male
Uh-huh.
dominated,
Uh-huh.
right? I am keenly aware of the differences between how men and women think. And in large part, men are way more comfortable taking ownership for their accomplishments than women are.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably in many ways biological. I don't think it's necessarily a fault, but I do think as women, as we grow, we have to be a lot more comfortable accepting the successes that we do have, and even learning from our failures enough to go, what piece of this failure is a success? What's one good thing that I took out of that business meeting that was an absolute crap show? Like, what's something good I did today? Like, don't lay your head on your pillow at night and think about all the crap you have to fix and what's wrong with you as a person. There's room for self-discovery, but there has to be room for self-praise. I would never speak to my children the way that for 13 years I spoke to myself when I went to bed
Oh
every
my
night.
gosh. That is so, so true. And I had these conversations with myself a few years ago when my negative self-talk was at an all-time high. And I remember thinking one day, like, would I ever say these things to a friend? And the answer was no. I never, never. I mean, it would, because it was just cruel. I mean, it would have been awful. They would have been like, I don't want to be friends with you anymore,
Right.
you know? And so now, I don't do that. And I think that I've really learned to give myself grace, like it's funny, especially traveling as much as I do. I make no secret about the fact that like I travel for food. Like my list of places I want to go
It's
is simply
amazing.
ranked by what foods I want to eat where. So, sometimes I'll come back from a trip and I'll be like, "Ooh, okay, I got to like tighten things up a little bit around here." But I'm like always like I would so much rather come back, feeling a little fluffier because I have all these amazing memories.
For
So
sure.
it's like, giving yourself grace in these different ways is so important, and not tearing yourself apart because, what if you didn't have tomorrow? Wouldn't you be sad that you didn't like eat that amazing like pastry or donut or
Yes.
dessert? Like, yeah.
My husband likes to joke with me. He will say, eat what you want, die when you should.
Ooh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
um, So I love that so much because we tend to think there's some level of honor in depriving ourselves of what we're passionate about.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
while we do have to bridle our passions, we shouldn't starve ourselves of the things that excite us or make us love life purely in the name of, I don't know, self-perceived success, maybe. So yeah, like part of my change was that I lost 60 pounds.
Oh, wow. Good for
Um,
you.
Thank you. But what I had to learn from that was I don't step on the scale anymore.
Mm-hmm.
If my clothes fit, I'm happy.
Perfect. Yeah.
And I don't step on the scale anymore because we create all of these sort of fictionalized measurements for ourselves to decide what success looks like.
Yeah.
Success is a feeling you get. It's not a stop on a map. It's not a benchmark in the future. It's none of those things. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why you'll hear people say that they chase success. Most of those people aren't chasing money. They're not chasing relationships. They're chasing a feeling
A
that
feeling.
comes
Absolutely.
when you've done something that you are proud of. And as you were
Yeah.
talking about that earlier, I just connect with that. Like, be proud of yourself and honor the road it takes you to get there because there's so much
Mm-hmm.
happiness in all of that if you'll let it be there.
Yeah. Well, and it's just so much about the journey. I mean, I think about what you were saying earlier about how you like, ran some half marathons and decided, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. And you found jujitsu and you're like, I love this. I'm like, that's so cool that you would even go and try that. I'm like, oh, like, cause I see people doing that and I'm just like, whoa, that looks hard and a little too close to other people than I might want to be. But I also think it's really, really cool. And what a great like self-defense,
Mm-hmm.
feeling like it probably gives you like, and I always say there's like unexpected like consequences to so many different things. And I would imagine that you feel a different level of confidence when you're out in the world, knowing that you can defend yourself in certain ways because of your training.
Yeah, I definitely do feel that way. You carry yourself with a different confidence when you feel like if you attacked me and tried to do something to me, I could at least get away from you. And actually, the likelihood that you will be attacked is less because you carry yourself differently, statistically speaking. And while I'm very small and I'm the smallest person on our team, I know that if somebody attacked me, the chances that I could get myself away are pretty high. And yeah, you're right. There is a real confidence that comes with that and a sense of power. And it is hilarious to be 115 pounds and spar with a dude that's like 6'2" and 240. You're just like, this doesn't feel
Yeah.
fair. But
Oh my
it's
gosh.
there's so much about it that's fun. And self-discovery can be fun. Like it should be.
Yeah,
I
it
just
should be.
yeah, and I think that's what you're doing as you're traveling too. And I love that what you have done is create a platform for people to share what their own self-discovery looks like,
Yeah. Oh,
and to build
thanks.
others. That's really special.
Thanks. Well, I think it's so cool to learn other people's journeys. And I think, I've said for years that like self awareness is like the key to so much. It's the key to change. It's the key to just like understanding yourself and your self regulation and your self management and who you are as a person and who you are as a friend and a sister and an aunt and a daughter and a wife and a girlfriend and whatever, all these different labels that we have, right?
Mhm.
CEO, like all these different things. But it's so important to know yourself. And I think that there's, a multitude of ways that we can all go about doing those things. And I think it's really cool to highlight them because you can show people things that maybe they hadn't considered to get to know themselves better.
Yeah. Well, and getting to know yourself is such a fluid thing. Like I surprise myself on the regular with new things I like or things I
Mm-hmm.
thought I liked that I'm like, oh, you know what? It turns out I'm not a huge fan of cilantro, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh,
Well, and it's like, one of the things that I've learned a lot over the last few years, and I was actually just talking with one of my girlfriends the other day, is like that we're constantly a work in progress. Like it never stops, like no matter how old you get. And, she was telling me how her mom had some health things happen the other day and they were really unsure, like what the root cause was. The doctor had basically told her that she had diverticulitis, which is like inflammation
oh
of like the
yeah.
stomach and all that, right? And so my first question was, well, what is she stressed about? And she was like, I asked her that too. And she said that she doesn't feel stressed right now. And well, but here's something interesting. Her mom recently retired. I said, I would bet that that is like the underlying kind of cause. I said, maybe she doesn't feel stressed, but she might be figuring out like who she is now that she's retired and she no longer has that, 9-to-5 commitment that she's had for years and years and years. And it just is so interesting because it's like, you would think like, oh my God, I retired. I'm done. Like I don't have to work anymore. Like this is so exciting. Yeah. But we're just these constant evolving beings until, the end of our days.
For sure. I also think as humans, we're not very good at identifying what stress feels like anymore because we've gotten so comfortable living with it. I actually have a stress coach that I'm just finishing up with, which if any of you have an opportunity to have a stress coach, I highly recommend it. His name's Dat Tran. And for most people, retiring comes with an identity crisis because you've been useful in one very specific way your entire life. And identity crises are stressful. Like, it's hard. And I love that that was your first thought. Like, that's somebody who is really familiar. Your experiences are so valuable because that is something being able to help her look at that, being like, of course she's stressed. Like, she's trying to figure out who she is again. So valuable. And we do carry all of that in our gut and our shoulders. Like 90% of us carry stress, gut, and shoulders.
Totally. I know. It's so interesting how our stomach is basically like our second brain, and it's like we have to take such good care of all of it. Everything is connected. It's so weird, but it's so true.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So a horrible time to be a human and at the same time, the best time to be a human that there's ever been.
So. Yeah, that is such a valid statement. Oh my gosh. Well, this has been so much fun. I feel like I could talk to you for hours. I'm so grateful to learn about you and your story and to now have you as a part of my world. So how can people get in touch with you? I would imagine there are so many different things, depending on who is listening, where people would love to share a conversation with you.
For sure. The easiest way is actually LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn as Brittany-A-Hansen. I'm on Instagram as Harpstrings. I don't post there very often because I find it's better for my mental health if I'm not forever on Instagram. But
fair.
Reach out to me. I'm always happy to have conversations with people. I love building other women and other professionals. So for sure that. And again, thank you for having me on today. What a cool platform that you have created.
Well, thank you for coming. This was so fun. I'm like just so happy. So thank you so much. And everybody who has been watching, listening, thank you so much for being here. And as always, if you haven't already, please like, follow, subscribe to the show, and we will talk to you next week.